Everyone knows Scarborough for its bays, its castle and its grand hotels, but there was a whole world of history hiding just beneath the surface, stories that even many locals have never heard. So you think you know Scarborough? Think again. These are tales that are rarely told, the oddities and mysteries that make Scarborough unique. In 1784, a large group of local smugglers landed a huge cargo of brandy, tea and tobacco on the beach. When custom officers tried to seize the goods, over 200 smugglers armed with clubs, axes and even guns attacked them right here in the harbour. Shots were fired, men were beaten and injured, and for a short time the whole waterfront was a chaotic battlefield. And the smugglers won the day, got their goods away, and the authorities were powerless to stop them. In the early 1900s, everyone in town knew of Docky Tom. He was a labourer who worked down by the water, but he refused to pay rent or live in a house. Instead, he built himself a home under the stone arches of the harbour itself. He hammered beams into the rock, put down the floor and built a tiny shelter right above the high tide line. He had a bed, a small stove and even grew flowers in cracks in the stone wall. He lived happily there for nearly 20 years, greeting fishermen and visitors, until the council finally evicted him in the 1930s. We all know about the Pendle witches, but far few people know that Scarborough had its own witch trials too. Back in 1655, 3 local women were accused of witchcraft. One of them, a woman named Frances Dixon, was charged with cursing her neighbours, causing illness and even making crops fail. She was found guilty, and in a grim moment in Scarborough's history, she was executed here in the town. It was one of the last witch trials to take place in Yorkshire, a dark, little remembered chapter of our past. In 1648, when Scarborough Castle was held by the Royalist soldiers and surrounded by parliamentary forces, they were completely cut off. There was no supplies, no contact and no money coming in. So the commander, Sir Hugh Cholmondeley, did something extraordinary. He set up his own mint right inside the castle. They melted down silver plates, cups and jewellery from local families and stamped their own coins, marked with the castle's name on it. These coins are very rare and they're valuable today, tiny pieces of money made right here during one of the most violent times in our history. Before the First World War, when flying was still brand new and dangerous, Scarborough was a hotspot for early pilots. In 1910, the very first powered flight took place from the castle headland. Just a few years later, pilots were performing stunts over the bay, and in 1913 one daring pilot actually flew his plane underneath the spar bridge, filling crowds and shocking everybody with his skill. And did you know, between the mid-1700s and early 1800s, Scarborough sent ships all the way to the Arctic to hunt whales. At its peak, there were 14 whaling ships sailing from here, bringing back oil and bone. The whole of the old town was once surrounded by massive stone walls and gates. As I walk along Castle Gate today, you see open streets, but 600 years ago, this was a fortified town. The stones you see on the corner of the houses is left from that wall. Tall, thick walls ran right around the settlement with heavy gates at the top of every main street. You had to pass through them to enter or leave, and they were locked tight at night. Almost all of it was pulled down in the 1700s to make way for new buildings, but if you look carefully at some of the older houses and walls, you can still find bits of the old wall built into the foundations. See that right here? As you walk past shops and cafes on Westborough, there once stood a place of fear, known locally as the Black Hole. This was Scarborough's main town prison, small, dark, damp, and very miserable. Prisoners were kept in chains, in rooms so small they could barely stand, and the conditions were terrible. Until the early 1800s, public executions even took place right outside its doors. It was pulled down in 1858 and the site was cleared. But for centuries, this busy part of the town was the grimmest place you could imagine. During the Second World War, Scarborough was far more than just a target for bombing. All along the coast, hidden in caves, dugouts and concrete bunkers were secret defences. There were even underground posts built right into the rock where soldiers would have lived and fought if the Germans had landed. Up on the headland there was a top secret radar station, one of the very first in the country, watching the skies and out to sea. There is a secret Cold War nuclear bunker underneath Scarborough Castle. Well, not so secret now. It was dug up a few months ago, now being filled in again. But I've found some video online where you can see what it looked like. And this is the opening to the nuclear bunker. It was built during the early 60s when the threat of nuclear war was very real, right in the middle of Scarborough Castle. It's buried deep right within the castle grounds, and it's a fully built Royal Observer Corps nuclear monitoring post, and designed to be used if Britain was attacked with nuclear weapons. Volunteers would have lived down there for weeks, recording explosions and radiation levels, completely cut off from the world above. It was sealed up and forgotten about for decades and only rediscovered recently. It's incredible to think that the ancient fortress was also ready to face the most modern danger imaginable.